4 o'clock on Thursday, April 13th, 2023, which is the appointed time and place of the Bismarck Renaissance Zone monthly meeting. Welcome, everyone. I see that we have a quorum present. We have a plethora of city commissioners at the table. Look it up. Plethora means like several.
It's not enough to have a special.
No. So,
No, I already got count.
so,
The trackers then.
so we welcome and we congratulate Renaissance Zone Authority and now City Commissioner Mike Connolly. This will be your last meeting as a sitting member of the Renaissance Zone Authority, as I understand it today, correct? Is that correct?
Based on a conversation that I had the day when I took my oath, because I came on as my understanding, when I put in the application, I'm one of the citizen members for the Renaissance Zone. So, and it's Commissioner Zanker's portfolio. I took over Splonkowski's portfolio, and so we had that discussion with the city administration, and I would, basically he'd keep his portfolio and that. So that's on the table because I think that's how the whole setup is supposed to function.
Sure. Thank you for the clarification of that. We also have a new member. We'd like to introduce Kirsten Dvorak. And you have to learn to turn your mic on and tell us a little bit about what you do, and welcome to the Renaissance Zone Authority.
Thank you. Kirsten Dvorak, and I am the Executive Director of the Arc of North Dakota and the Arc of Bismarck. And so that's what I do. So.
Well, again, welcome, Kirsten. Anybody else have any welcoming remarks? Or we have some farewell remarks that we're going to make a little bit later on in the meeting, but we're going to make them wait in the audience. So, first item of business on the agenda would be to consider the minutes of the December 8th, 2022 meeting. That's the last time we met. And you've all had the minutes in your packet. They've been distributed to you. Do you have any comments, questions, changes, corrections?
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Moved by Joe, seconded by Kurt. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Now we'll move on to the regular agenda. First item of which is the extension of Renaissance Zone project at 500 North 3rd Street and 112 East Avenue E. Daniel, you're going to walk us through these.
Good afternoon, Renaissance Zone Authority. The Lander Group is requesting an extension of the completion deadline to the approval of new construction Renaissance Zone projects. These would be the Grove, which is at 500 North 3rd Street, and also Renaissance Lofts at 112 East Avenue A. So the request would be to extend the deadline to July 31st, 2023. These projects were originally approved back in 2020. They did get an extension this last fall to the end of the year, and we have not met since that deadline has surpassed, and so this would be what allowed them to get to their completion. As you can see from the photos here, the construction is largely done. From the outside, you wouldn't really tell, but the CO has not yet been issued, and so they do expect that within the next month or two. So this would get them past that time. If you have any questions, I believe a representative from the applicant is here as well, so I can try to answer anything too.
Staff recommends approval. What are your wishes? Anybody care to make a motion to extend the? Mm-hmm. What did they officially need?
I mean, you said a month or two, so what's the official ask that they have?
July.
I think.
July 31st.
July 31st.
Would be, yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
Moved and seconded that we grant the extension. Any further discussion on the motion?
The only question I'd have, maybe Daniel for staff or the applicant, is who picked that date?
So we, I consulted with Tony Crea from the Lander Group, and they thought they could be done by June, but we put July 31st just to add a little cushion.
I think I ask this anytime someone asks for an extension, but tell us what date you need and then hit it.
Yeah.
I know there's been a lot of difficulty with new construction and getting materials, so supportive of the extension.
Any further discussion or questions on the motion? Anyone hearing none, call the roll, please.
Authority Member Greg Zenker.
Yes.
Mike Connolly.
Yes.
Joe Fink.
Yes.
Justin Gavrilo.
Yes.
Kirsten Dvorak.
Yes.
Kurt Wall.
Yes.
Chair Christensen.
Yes, that motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the Grand Pacific Center egress stairs on the Grand Pacific Center, which we all probably know as the Wells Fargo or the Norwest Bank Building at 4th and Broadway. Daniel?
Thank you, Chair. Presidio Property Trust is requesting downtown design and review approval of a building addition to the Grand Pacific Center at 400 East Broadway Avenue. This addition would consist of exterior stairway, which would extend through the north wall of the third floor and then connect to the stairs, the second floor exit. On the photo here, you can see, if I'll point my cursor here, this photo is taken from the street at Thayer, looking to the south. You can see the area about right here where the stairway would be in the exterior of the building. The stairs and the interior would go all the way to the fourth and fifth floors. It's required for occupation for fire code purposes. But we would only see them on the outside on those floors, so that's really where design review is applicable. You can see some renderings here, if this, there we go, that were supplied by the architect showing where the stairs would be. Once again, it's a fairly minor visual change. You'd see above the second floor there from Thayer. From 4th Street, you can barely make out where it is here on this rendering. So it would not have a significant visual impact from the outside, which is good. It's not really, the building wasn't intended in this way, so they're trying to minimize that impact. There were some questions that were raised by our design advisors, our technical advisors, relating to the material. The proposal is to use an ephes that would, as closely as possible, match the surface that's there, the precast concrete surface. There's a realization that the exact aggregate will not be possible to match. So the architect feels that the ephes would approximate this closely enough. And so there are some questions in mind about whether the ephes is the appropriate material. So that's something that could be under discussion. Another question that has arisen is whether a more angular basically form of the stairs would align more closely with the design, the original design of the building, rather than the sloped roof of the stairway. There's pros and cons to each of these designs. The applicant is proposing the sloped stairs partially to preserve daylight views from the inside, and also to limit just the mast itself, which would be larger if you had a squared off section. So those are kind of raised by staff and the technical advisors for discussion. There's nothing in the design that we believe merits really complete rejection or really delaying this in any way, but we just raise these for your consideration. That being said, I can answer any questions, or design advisors are here too for your help.
So staff recommends approval. Questions of staff or of the design consultants? Back there, David and Eric. Joe?
It's just the only question for design would be, what other material would they use other than ephes?
So, and perhaps this is something the design advisors might want to address, or the architect. Yeah, why don't I let them discuss that?
Sure, come on up.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
My name's Kent Wild. I'm with the firm of Wild CRG, and we were providing the architectural services for the code-required egress stair addition to this building, and it is a miserable problem to solve. The building is bounded on the east by the alley. The second floor projects on the other three sides, and the structural engineer reviewed things that limit us to basically one spot, which is where we are at. As we looked at it, and we did various massings and looked at different versions of the 3D approach, and minimizing the impact seemed like the best answer. The aggregate face panels, which is the question at hand, are going to be something that we're going to have a hard time matching. Our thought was that if we looked at a lighter weight material, which was kind of one of the structural ideas here, we could use a heavier textured EFIS, which is that exterior insulating and finish project, and we would have to review some samples. I think we could look at a tone and come up with some ideas on that. We need to really work with the contractor to spend some time coming up with that. But we looked at that as being the most appropriate way. We did look at other materials. We looked at metal panels. We looked at some things like that, but they all seemed a little more out of place because those materials don't exist on the current building's exterior material palette. So it is a work in progress, but we think that's the best approach, and we just need to get a tone that blends in.
Questions of Mr. Wild?
It might just be for Divine, but do you know what other materials they might be using other than EFIS?
But you're right, it's going to be really difficult to match that existing aggregate precast. A possible other material could be just another precast panel that is similar in tone. There's always concerns with EFIS, with color fastness fading over time. Durability is a concern, but not so much in this scenario because it's not a place where people are going to be walking around. At the end of the day, from structural standpoint, presumably from a cost standpoint, I have no major concern. So we just wanted to propose and to look at other materials.
Thanks, Eric. Other questions or comments? Anyone? As I look at the rendering, it's the most visible angle of it will be from the actual bank parking lot. That'll have
Yes.
the most visibility. It'll barely be visible from 4th Street at all. And not so much from Thayer as you get further away from the building. So, I mean, I agree with Daniel. I don't see a huge visual impact from this addition. It is being required by building inspections in the city, so. Other
This
thoughts?
is just for my curiosity, but is the stairwell entering in that front vestibule up to the east, or up to the west, rather?
No, there is a two-story stair element that in the bottom rendering is kind of that rectilinear block to the left side.
Right.
That just serves the parking ramp, basically. And we looked at options that might incorporate that, and we found out that structurally is something we cannot look at. So what happens is the stair serves floors 6 through 3, and then we poke out through the wall on 3rd onto that roof area, and we actually we have to cut a hole in that roof to bring the stair down. So we take a little bit of the bank lobby right adjacent to their vestibule, and then the door exits in that area that we show kind of between the two areas. So it exits onto the upper level of the parking ramp, and we don't interact with the bank space whatsoever.
So you'll have the door into that. So you'll have the door into that two-story enclosure for stairs. You'll have the door to the vestibule to the bank, and then you'll have this separate door for this
Yes.
fire exit almost.
And in this one, we kind of highlighted it to show it to people, but the intent is actually to, again,
Minimize
paint that and make it disappear.
Okay. Other questions? Other questions or comments from technical? If not, what are your wishes? Staff recommends approval.
I'd move approval as submitted.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Zenker. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please, Sandra. Thank you.
Thank you.
Authority Member Mike Connolly.
Yes.
Joe Fink.
Yes.
Dustin Gavrilo.
Yes.
Kirsten Dvorak.
Yes.
Kurt Wall.
Yes.
Greg Zenker.
Yes.
Chair Christensen.
Yes, that motion carries. Thank you. Excuse me. Other business, item 4 is discussion about reauthorization of Bismarck's Renaissance Zone program. Most of you know that, or hopefully many of you know that the legislature passed House Bill 1266 a month or so ago, which allows expired zones to be reinstated. The governor signed it into law a few weeks ago, so that's where we are at. It did not have an emergency clause, so we'd be looking at August 1 for an effective date. And we thought it best to start the discussion now. about when, what, and if we want to proceed and ask for a reinstatement and how that would look. So Daniel, if you want to get the timeline up there or elaborate on my remarks, but we don't want to assume anything, but we'd like to assume that we'd like to have a Renaissance zone at the end of the day. So go ahead.
Yep. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I don't really have anything to add beyond just suggested timeline. So in the packet that that was submitted last week, there's a little memo that explains kind of some update that the Chair just shared with you. And if you do choose to pursue this, there is a timeline that you could follow that would basically enable us to most efficiently reinstate the Renaissance Zone program, so it could be effectively started on August 1st. It is okay for us to begin the process prior to August 1st. We don't have to wait until that, but it would not be able to be started until then. But it does take time. The letters of support that we received from organizations, from the public organizations last year, are no longer valid. So we do need to go back to each of the taxing entities, so City Commission, School Board, Park Board, and Burleigh County Commission. At least Park Board has traditionally been our ask. And so we would seek to get on their agendas if you would ask us to. I haven't approached any of them about that, so I don't know that these meetings are available at this time, but I didn't want to do that before knowing we were proceeding. If you would like to do that, then we could work on that, and then the end date would be that August 1st. One thing to discuss, the Senate Bill 2391 is another Renaissance Zone bill. It has not been signed yet, but it looks like it probably will be. The one aspect that this may affect the Bismarck Renaissance Zone is that the authorization period could be extended up to 10 years. Previously, it was 5 years. And so you would have the option of requesting up to 10 years of reauthorization. And really, the only benefit to that would just be the administrative efficiency of having to go through this, and both at our level and at the state level. But otherwise, the other elements of Senate Bill 2391 would require a change of the development plan to institute, which is something that we would not be doing at this point based on our advice from Commerce. We would be coming in the same way we came out from the Renaissance Zone. So if you have any questions for me, also Ricky Rorick is here too from the Department of Commerce, who has been a Renaissance Zone program administrator for quite a while, and now she's kind of promoted in a different seat, but still is very well versed in this. So if you have any questions for her too, she could help.
So the purpose today would be to just open it for discussion, and if we're in agreement, then we would probably ask for a motion to start implementing the timeline, to instruct staff to get going on it. But right now, it's open for discussion.
So I had been discussing via email with Commerce, trying to avoid getting in trouble. At the same time, this issue of how we would be submitting it to the county and school district as it was ended, and so I'm wondering if that's accurate. Number one, on the record. Number two, whether we think that the county is going to have a different position now than it did last time around, if it is exactly the same, and then also why would we think that?
So for your first point, Ricky, do you want to address the technical question about resubmitting it as it was when it expired?
Sure.
Introduce yourself for the audience, please.
Absolutely. Do I have to? Okay, great. So my name's Ricky Rorick. I work at the Department of Commerce, and I have been working with the Renaissance Zone program since 2014. I do want to preface anything I say here that we have not written official guidelines for the new legislation for the Renaissance Zone, so our office is going to be working on that over the next couple of months. So my remarks today are really going to be more about the philosophical approach that we've been discussing internally thus far. But we will have guidelines probably in 2 months that'll be finalized for everyone, and they'll detail that in a lot more than I can speak today. But just from a preliminary perspective, yes, we are we are going to require that a Renaissance zone that applies for reinstatement come in exactly as they left off. And the reason behind that is because we do have pretty strict requirements when it comes to adding and deleting blocks. Especially with deleting blocks, it's technically allowed that you can reinstate a deleted block, but we have never approved one. Simply because we want to encourage this idea that the Renaissance Zone program is this long-term community development program. So we don't want communities who are pursuing a reinstatement to view this as like a blank slate. We can start fresh, start over, and so that's why we're asking that they come in exactly as they did at the time it exited the zone. So no block manipulations, no big changes to the development plan. After it's been reinstated, a community can make changes to their boundary or the development plan, but you'll have to follow those existing processes to do that.
Does that answer your question on that one, Dustin?
Mostly, yeah. Yeah, I think that the other piece of it is the idea that the county would have changed its mind necessarily. I mean, there is new members on the county commission, but unless there's been some sort of coordination that I'm not aware of, I'm wondering why there would be the feeling that they would change their mind.
Ricky, you want to answer that?
I'm going to go sit down. No, thank you guys.
Thank you. So I don't know if we have any mind readers at the table that would like to answer that, but we won't know unless we try. So seems pretty simple, pretty basic to me, Joe.
Yeah, I certainly couldn't disagree, Mr. Chair. I mean, if we're going to be approaching other boards to try and see value in this program, we need to know what value we bring and what they care about. And the county may not care about additional tax revenue, and if they don't, then that's not something we need to really be caring to talk to them about. It's something that we've touted a number of times. Something we've touted a number of times within our meeting and showing the return on investment, which I think is, in our opinion, or in my opinion, is probably one of the best ways to show the value of the program. But if the county commissioners don't care about that, it's not worth talking about. So having a conversation before we go in front of them, asking for their ability to reconsider approval is, if we even bring this in front of you, what can we tell you that will change your mind, or what we can tell you that you see value in? What does this program do for this community? So I guess the biggest thing is just I don't think there's a doubt in anyone on this board's mind that the program is worthwhile. It's a matter of how do we communicate that and what do they care about?
So without violating open meetings, how is that going to occur?
Yeah, I think you need to get on their meeting and have a discussion about it. Is ask to be put on their meeting and say, this is something that we're considering doing. And what do you, like, we know the value of this. How can we communicate it? What do you care about?
Well, the fact that we have 3 new county commissioners, it's not the same board that it was.
Yeah, so they obviously will have different values as well.
Right.
Yep. I mean, I personally can't believe that revenue isn't a good idea. So if it's completely philosophical, then there's no way around it. What are you going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
I think Dustin should be the ambassador from the Renaissance Zone Authority. Mike?
I don't think that's a good idea either.
So it goes through all of the motions that it did before, goes in front of the county. What happens if, regardless of the division, if one of them says no at this point?
Then we're done. You say
Then we're done?
One of
It's
the 5
done?
people or one of the boards?
One of the boards,
Oh, yeah.
right.
You couldn't even submit an application. Sorry. You couldn't even submit an application to the state to seek reapproval
Right.
without
Without the letters
all
of
of the
support.
board's approval.
Right.
Yeah, with the exception of parks, which
We
I
do
think
that
we
as a
should
courtesy.
continue to seek out.
Well, I know one of the discussions that I've seen is that, and Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, over the 21-year history of it, the county benefit was in the area of $51,000 100,000, 50?
No, that was
That
just
was
for
per year.
calendar year
Per year?
2021.
Just one
Okay.
year.
Okay,
So take that times
Well, you-
decades.
Take that times whatever it was that year and then project that for 30 years in the future.
okay.
Yeah.
And Daniel is going to work on the actual return to the county since the inception. I don't think he has that number yet, but, correct, Daniel? But, you know, maybe 200, I don't know what it is, but we'll find out.
Well, and that person's conversation and things, it came up, that's not even what a pickup costs on our budgetary item. It is a plus, but it's not even what a pickup costs. So as those discussions go forward, know that those conversations, those are the examples that are out there. So those are going to be what you get met with at those boards, and that's important.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, charging citizens more tax to pay for that pickup seems ill-advised, in my opinion, but I'm not on the board.
Other comments, questions, suggestions?
I guess the suggestion that I would make is that we do some preliminary reach out, is that we need to know what these boards care about so that we can help communicate the benefits of the program. Because if we assume we think what the values are, we'll end up with the same result we did last time.
Attorney Combs, do you want to weigh in on what we can and can't do on reaching out? Either as citizens or as board
Yep.
members?
Sure. Chair Christensen and Renaissance Zone Authority members. So our problem is, you can, of course, as a citizen, reach out to anyone. Our problem becomes as members of boards, this board or county board or city boards, is when you reach out to a quorum of them to try to advocate for a particular action that is an open meeting. You know, you can get to two. Our problem will be that I do think in the best interest of everyone, it is better if this is a high-level discussion coming possibly either from the chair or from the city commission member or the mayor or someone going to the county commission board and starting the conversation. And asking those questions of what their concerns are. That, to me, it has to be done in an open meeting or you're not going to get relevant information. If that answers your question.
Answers mine. Anybody else have a question for
I have
Janelle?
one more question, but it does, in the processes that need to take place, is there anything required at the city commission level at this point to reinstate the program? Or the board?
Well, your board, this board is not,
Correct.
it's still here.
Yep.
That we did not repeal the ordinance. We were intending to wait and not rush to something. So the board itself is in place. If we have to make changes based on what the new law is, I have to go through all of the laws and hopefully get everything changed of what needs to change in ordinance for everything. So whatever that is, that part will change. But it essentially is the city commission who approves or puts forth this. You're an advisory board in terms of the Renaissance Zone portion of it. So it may be most appropriate to put it to the commission or the portfolio holder, I bet, has a great idea.
Commissioner Zinker?
I'll just, since it came up at a commission meeting when we were told to bring I could use my coaching voice, that really carries. But when we made the decision at the commission table, it wasn't really even a decision. It was a quick consensus to make sure that we bring this board back together and whatever ideas or whatever the process is, that it comes from this board and goes to the commission. So from my perspective, the city commission already approved it once. I don't see anything that may derail it or not, depending on if there's new laws or whatever the fine print is in the bill. But I can put together, Daniel and I can put together a proposal, and I can carry the burden to the county commission and see what happens. I don't have a problem doing that.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Joe? I mean, obviously, the number one on our list is the city commission approval or letter of support, so.
I'd like to throw out an idea.
Sure.
What if we invited all of the county commissioners to a special meeting of this authority? Whoever shows up, shows up. It's an open meeting. Discuss everything in the open.
Thoughts on that? Anybody react?
Make it easier than bouncing around.
Let me piggyback on that a little bit because it'll be Janelle that defines these details again. With the new Burley County Bismarck, those are notice meetings as well. Could that be another additional level of conversation as these go forward as possible time, and how would that look, or what would that look like?
Chair Christensen, authority members, Member Connolly. So I was thinking the same thing, as I could just ask if we can get that on the discussion as to how the county would like to be approached best. Just thinking in terms of negotiation, typically we like to be friendly and helpful to the ones we're asking something of, to make them most comfortable. So that's kind of why I think we started with going to them. But if they're willing to come to you, that'd be great. But I don't know.
Well, it could go either way. I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
that necessarily matters. It's just a matter of that the both entities speak it together. That way that there's no, back room stuff going on.
There will be no backroom stuff. It will be in an open meeting, and our policy at the city is to always, either with DMA's great help, have it publicized that way, or my very poor tech skills at Teams meeting and publish it that way. So either way, it will be out in the open and public.
Thoughts on that? Daniel?
Chair, if you would, I'd like to add one point to this item. So for many years, Burley County has had a portfolio holder basically assigned to the Renaissance Zone Authority. They don't currently, although Chair Matthews did reach out to me prior to this meeting and expressed regrets in not being able to come. She really wanted to be here at this meeting, but was not able to. She's very interested in what would happen at this meeting, and I think open to conversation.
So I have a question.
Yes, Kirsten.
Well, then, do we just want to invite either Matthews or have their portfolio holder attend a meeting?
Or the entire county
Yeah.
commission? Is that your thought, Dustin?
That was my thought, and whoever wants to show up can show up. It doesn't necessarily have to be, they have to notice it because they'll be there, but there's nothing is actually going to happen. There's not going to be a vote or anything. So, if you invite them, it tells you who is willing to deal with you. So why not? Sure. Do it all at once. Yeah.
Interesting. Any further thoughts on the subject, Kurt? We can do that. Yep. I don't know that it's necessary to invite all of those boards to one big meeting, but we did have unanimous letters of support from all of them except for one last year.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Just because I'm the freshman of the group here. Does Commissioner Matthews usually attend the meetings? No.
She did one. Attend our meetings here?
Yeah.
She has attended one.
Yeah, I was going to say, when I looked at the minutes, she was in the minutes, so
Yeah,
that's
and
why I'm
prior to that,
asking.
Kathleen Jones did as well.
But I would agree to invite Chair Matthews and see what she wants to do.
What would be wrong with inviting all five of them? Yeah, doesn't
Yeah.
public notice it, and then if we want to do that, the next question is, do we try and do that? Well, April 25th is right around the corner, so it's probably not going to happen before that. Do we change this timeline? Do we just go ahead with the city commission, ask for the letter of support in the meantime and follow our timeline? You know what I'm saying? Is it going to feel like we've already started? Well, I guess we need to start. It's our job, right? So, okay. Daniel, if you want to reach out to Chair Matthews and see what kind of dates might work for a special meeting. Only item on the agenda would be to discuss Renaissance Zone.
Okay.
Sometime between now and June, preferably.
Okay, will do.
Great. All right, do you want that? We need that in the form of motion, it's kind of the consensus of the authority. Is it the consensus of the authority, or would we like a motion that we do proceed, instruct staff to proceed with the meeting timelines, the letters to these other bodies? Somebody like to put that in the form of a motion, get this process going, the whole process?
With all the leniency it provides, let's move forward with this process and direct staff to do so.
Sounds like
So
a motion.
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please. Sandra?
Authority Member Joe Fink.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Dustin Gavrilo.
Yes.
Kirsten Dvorak.
Yes.
Kurt Wolf.
Yes.
Greg Zanker.
Yes.
Mike Connolly.
Yes.
Chair Christensen.
Yes, that motion carries. Thank you. Item 5 on the agenda is a review of our bylaws. Daniel kind of tweaked them a little bit. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look through them. It's not something we normally deal with, but we should probably take a look at annually or when they've been updated, modified. Do you want Daniel to walk you through the changes? Everybody had a chance to look at them? They're not that exhaustive. So, I mean, the action here would be to approve them if you're comfortable doing that. Kurt? There's-
One point in Article 2B, under organization.
Well, I'll correct that. Thank you. You can tell I'm borrowing language here.
All right, one correction there on Article 2, Section B, under organization. And with that correction noted, do you wish to make a motion, Commissioner, to approve? Is there a second to the motion to approve and adopt an update? Seconded by Kurt. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please, Sandra.
Authority Member Dustin Gavrilo.
Yes.
Kirsten Dvorak.
Yes.
Dvorak. Kurt Wolf.
Yes.
Greg Zanker.
Yes.
Mike Connolly.
Yes.
Joe Fink.
Yes.
Chair Christensen.
That was easy, yes, I'm sorry, yes, that was easier than I thought it would be. So that motion carries, thank you. Item 6 on the agenda is election, this might be the tough one, election of chair and vice chair. Does anybody have any thoughts before the meeting? Joe and I had an illegal private meeting, not a public meeting, but Joe said he would volunteer to be vice chair if anybody else didn't want to do it. I'm willing to serve again if everybody wants me to. If you don't want me to, I'm willing to do something else too, so it's open for a discussion.
I'll just make the motion.
What motion is that?
That make Joe vice and you chair.
Okay, there's a motion. Is
Unless
there a
there's other.
second?
Discuss it.
I'll second that.
Sure?
Yes.
Kind of reluctantly. There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Just what an overwhelming, you know what, you just get a warm and fuzzy for that one?
It's
No, for, I'm,
Yeah.
I get that at the parking authority too. If there's no further discussion, call the roll, please. Sandra?
Authority Member Kirsten Dvorak.
Yes.
Kurt Wolf.
Yes.
Greg Zanker.
Yes.
Mike Connolly.
Yes.
Joe Fink.
yes.
Dustin Gavrilo.
Yes.
Chair Christensen.
Yes, that motion carries. Thank you, I think. Item 7 on the agenda says recognition of Todd Van Ormum and Bruce Whitty, who are past members of this body. I don't know, do we have some sort of special? Oh, yeah, we do. Oh, thank you. I think Bruce's involvement dates to probably the beginning, not the beginning of time, but yes, the stone tablets. Like literally 2001, 2, Sandy got you involved, I think. Tabor, does that sound right? I mean, you were on the original, right? Yeah. Well,
Well, there was actually a steering committee before that.
so,
Before time.
well, I was on the steering committee.
Yeah, you invented the wheel.
Yeah. I didn't make the cut to be on the Renaissance Zone Authority until later, so, and then Todd, you served for how many years? 9. I was gonna say 9 or 10 years, so. We don't have any little bags of cookies or anything for you, but we do offer our appreciation for all the years and all the time and energy that you put into this. And does anybody else have anything they'd like to say to these august gentlemen in our audience? That means like fine gentlemen, you can look it up. It's like.
I didn't bring my.
Is there a motion to express the board's appreciation? Somebody want to make a motion, maybe? I don't know. I'll make that motion. Kirsten, that'd be appropriate. And all in favor, we can say aye. We don't need a roll call vote on that one. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate what you did. Okay. And item eight on the agenda is a report from city staff. I don't know if Daniel has anything left to.
Okay, I can give a brief report. Renaissance Zone Authority, just some updates on projects that are in their completion process. The quality title project, 425 North 5th Street, the building's done. It's gotten its CO. Everything is done according to plan, and we are in the process of closing that one out. So they would begin their exemption period in 2024. After the February 1st, we start the next year. So Trestle Building at 630 East Main, the project is completed. We're still needing some invoices, and we're still working through the completion process, but that project is done, has been completed. And so you are aware, we'll be putting out a notice fairly soon for a new Renaissance Zone member. So you'll see that on the city website. So if anyone out there would like to join, there will be an opportunity that goes to City Commission for their approval. Probably in May, I'm assuming, or perhaps June, but we'll try to get one in here as soon as we can. So that's all I have.
Any questions of Daniel? Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Report from Kate and the Downtowners.
Chair, authority members, I did ask Bruce if he wanted to join the authority just now, and he said no. So we'll have to find someone else, but yeah. Just wanted to go over a couple of quick things. So the last time I talked to you all was December, and we were just putting 1266 together, the reinstatement bill, and then kind of talking about a lot about that, essentially the legislative items. One thing about 1266, and I think somebody mentioned, what if the county says no? There's no there's no limit to the number of times that you could go and ask for a reinstatement. So let's say they say no. And in 3 years you want to try again, you certainly can. So there's not a limit to that. I mean, there's probably a limit if you don't want to annoy people, but there's no limit in law that would preclude you from doing that. We did ask for an amendment that did make sure that zones did have to come back as they had left, because it earlier had sort of written, it looked like if you wanted to be sneaky, you could let your zone expire and then come back and do a whole different 40 block somewhere else. And so that was one amendment we did ask for, and that made it through. So it's got to come back, as it had left. And then with 2391, we supported it at the Downtowners Association, although we don't really have a dog in that fight. Some of the other things in that bill are you can ask for a secondary island of 3 blocks. We don't have a first island, so that really isn't big on the Bismarck list. There was an exemption, kind of extension, if you put 75% of the building value into rehabilitation, you could get an 8-year exemption versus 50% and a 5-year exemption. That is in the bill. But you can still do 50% 5 years. So we didn't, again, that wasn't a huge part of that I thought Bismarck was going to ask for. And that was more so some other communities. And there are a few other changes in 2391, the 10-year, up to a 10-year renewal extension. And that was really initiated by the Commerce Department, because they have about 60 zones that, come for renewal every 5 years, not each year, but quite a few. And it was a pretty big administrative issue for them. So that's why that 10-year renewal is in there. So most of those items came from other communities in North Dakota. We did support them. There's various reasons. The secondary project one, for example, also came up and is in the bill, that you could do a secondary Renaissance Zone project 30 years after the initial project. And some smaller communities like Lisbon, some that had natural disasters and had a Renaissance Zone project and maybe a fire or a flood, and they need to rebuild that area of town, but it would technically be a second Renaissance Zone project on the parcel. So there's a lot of smaller communities, Valley City, that really liked 2391. Don't necessarily think we have a huge dog in that fight, but it did pass pretty much as it had. There's one amendment that needs to go back, clarification and definition, but it did pretty much pass. The other thing that's maybe changed a bit since December, but was an issue then as well, are interest rates. Interest rates are terrible right now in terms of, not 80s terrible, but we're getting into not a great spot with being able to do projects at 8% interest or whatever it's going to be, without some interest buy down programs and things like that. So we're seeing a little bit of slowdown in general in Bismarck, kind of on the permit side. I think folks are just sort of in a little bit of a wait and see pattern. With interest rates that high, you really need to kind of know what you're going to do, and your pro forma needs to be pretty tight or your project needs to get smaller. So it's definitely an issue that we're looking at, and the commercial lenders will see it, and I think we'll all see it this year. There's just kind of it'll be probably a smidge slower on the commercial side with rates where they're at, unless there's some other kind of program that sort of brings rates down. But overall, those are kind of the two things we're looking at from the bigger picture side. We do have some projects that are probably going to be underway, within 2023, the budget in probably being one of the larger ones. The budget in is under contract. It's supposed to close April 15th. They need to have the building vacated and empty for the new owners to take over. If you've driven by, there are just boatloads of trailers of garbage that are going out of there. So it's pretty close to being vacant. And that's one of the conditions of the sale. And that's a big site. And then we've got a couple others kind of in the northwest quadrant of downtown that are potentially going to, if our Renaissance Zone comes back, a look at a 2023 project. So the zone exemption becomes particularly important now as interest rates are much higher than they were 2 years ago.
Granted. Questions for Kate? Anybody, any questions? Thanks for the update. Kate?
Yep.
Anyone have anything else for the good of the order? Anybody have anything else? If not,
I don't know if it's any
Joe?
good for anyone, but I've heard a couple of times, and I just want to make sure that I pointed out that a 10-year period for a Renaissance Zone is not just simply for administrative purposes. Like, projects take time, and to get the right project in the right situation with the right finances and the business model to work, it takes more in the 30 or 40 blocks that we've got available than a 5-year time period, and you either get it done or you're out forever. So a 10-year time frame allows that right project. We need to just continue, if this continues, be smart about which blocks go in. So I just want to point out, it's not just administrative. It makes a big difference in being able to show consistency on the city level of what investments we're willing to make.
okay, thank you for that. I'm sure we'll be having that discussion many more times. If there's nothing further, and if there's no objection, we stand adjourned until May 11th. Thanks, everybody.